Hey everyone, so I'm here to talk about video games in general and Earthbound specifically, while answering that immortal question, are video games art? So, straight to it, are video games art? Yes they are. Okay, so here's the thing about art. We as a society define what it is. And I think that while not everyone in society agrees, enough do to make it valid. I mean, just as an example, like the Smithsonian, and like they put on their exhibit on the art of video games a couple of years back, and the government's National Endowment for the Arts is giving grants to game developers. So I think it's obvious to many people that games can really tell amazing stories and convey important ideas, as any art form does. So I guess I'm not sure why this many years in, we're still having this conversation. I think society has agreed on something, not all of it perhaps, but enough of it, but enough of society agrees to stop being so insecure about the games we play. And this insecurity that a lot of gamers have, not all certainly, but many of them have about games not being taken seriously is problematic. It causes them to lash out at other individuals who have different opinions and consequently to not be seen as mature individuals. We just need to respect other people's choices in art. But much like any other art form, games are often made based around experiences or ideas that are important to the game's creator. Like, Miyamoto was inspired to create the Zelda series by playing in the fields of Kyoto as a child, and exploring them was reflected in the overworld. And he based the game's dungeons around his family's house with these kind of labyrinth-like rooms of sliding doors. And in the MGS series, it talks about the dangers of nuclear weapons and nuclear proliferation. It talks about genetic engineering and how our experiences shape our choices, all things Hideo Kojima has found important ideas in his life. And in Earthbound, Ness's dad, who only appears over the phone, for instance, is handled that way because Shigesato Itoi, his father, was often working and absent a lot during his childhood. So now, why am I talking about Earthbound specifically? Because there's a reason it was one of the games nominated to be included in the Smithsonian's exhibit on the art of video games. Earthbound is at once the first modern and postmodern RPG. The first postmodern game I'm aware of. I say that meaning that the game is a commentary on other RPGs of the time. Look at the setting. A modern one instead of a modern one instead of this fantastical land long ago, or the far future. You fight not with swords and shields, but baseball bats and yo-yos. Gone are those random encounters that so often plague RPGs. You can see all the enemies on the field, and if you encounter a weak enough enemy, you automatically win. Look at the aesthetics of this game. I know many people consider this game cartoony, and they aren't wrong, but it's also a pastiche of 90s culture. It's simple and charming looking, with pastel colors everywhere. What was it the 90s in pastel colors? Stripes and pastels, basically. And grunge, I suppose. Well, beyond that, this game takes basic RPG tropes and kind of makes fun of them, like a living dungeon creator in the form of Dungeon Man. The game's mechanics also tie in with the game's narrative. Ness gets homesick when adventuring, and this status affliction, which makes him randomly waste turns thinking about home, can be cured by calling his mom. That's definitely something anyone who's been away from home, camping for a long period of time, as a kid, can relate to. So, unlike most other RPGs where towns are just kind of reprieves from the frightening overworld filled with monsters, just about everything happens in towns in Earthbound. Sure, there are some areas of wilderness exploration, but the majority of this game takes place in cities. These cities are filled with NPCs you can talk to who all have something interesting to say. You've got a diverse range of settings, from small towns to suburbs to big cities, to expensive port cities and small little towns tucked away in the frozen north. All these settings play into the game's narrative. And look at the game's narrative. Spoilers for anyone who hasn't played, but it's about growing up and taking responsibility. As Ness moves from city to city, you have Onet, Tucson, Threed, and Forside, and winters and summers, and they're alluding to how someone progresses through school grades and years of life. It's also about the importance of making friends and not trying to be an island. Ness, for all his talents, can't complete this quest by himself. He needs the help of others, especially here, when we see Jeff come to the rescue, to achieve something great. Keep in mind also that Ness's journey progresses from place to place. Traveling has long been a metaphor for maturing, going hand in hand with having new experiences and conquering new challenges, as those road epics like Lord of the Rings will remind us. Because to defeat Gygas, the universal cosmic destroyer, the game's main villain, Ness will need not just the help from his friends, but from everyone he's met on his journey, and the power of the Earth itself. So every good RPG has you collecting some sort of series of items, and in Earthbound this is represented by strange, rare areas of the world brimming with otherworldly power, which Ness must sync with to unlock his true potential. And many of us have been traveling somewhere only to stop and sort of be taken aback by an amazing sight. To feel some sort of unquantifiable qualia that enlivens us and makes us feel a sense of being, of purpose, of presence, of significance to that part of the world. Sometimes when we're out in the middle of no place, we find that it's more of a someplace than anywhere else we might be at the moment. And at the end, when Ness has visited these far-flung places of the world and made all the powers his own, he engages in a journey to the center of his own mind, where he faces down his own dark side. After conquering the evil within, Ness and his friends take the fight to Gygas himself, heading to a lost, underworldly realm, and then proceeding into the distant past to face the time-traveling cosmic horror where it lives. Ness's journey starts just down the street from home, and it ends about as far away from one's home as it can get. And these are just some interpretations of the game. There's countless ones out there, each thought up by different people. Because the validity of one theory is not destroyed by another. This game simply means different things to different people. And then there's this meta-narrative of sorts. Think about how this game breaks the fourth wall. It asks you for your name, the player's name, towards the middle of the game. And just as Ness and his friends are about to be defeated by an entity which cannot be destroyed through sheer physical power, as they call for the psychic help and prayers of all those they met along their journey, at the end it uses your name and defeats the main bad guy. Gygas, the main villain, essentially dies because you want him to. You are the god of this world in a way. The amount of agency and respect this game grants the player is really amazing. So the final portion of the game is sort of a playable denouement. It's a calm walk back through all the places you've went on travels, wrapping up. It's a calm walk back through all the places you've went on your travels. You're wrapping things up, saying goodbye to friends, and reflecting on all the things you've seen and done. All the things you've experienced, before you arrive back at the door to your house where it all started. This is something games can do extremely well over other types of media. Not just tell the player a story, but take them on a journey and let them reflect over the choices they made and the things they experienced along the way. And so I argue that for all these elements, the way the game uses its mechanics and how it reflects upon society, the unique things it does with its narrative, Earthbound is a perfect example of how games can be an art form. Thanks for watching.